Nostalgia.
What's up, people? Welcome to the first episode of Nostalgia Talk, where me and some friends talk about our memories and experiences with our favorite series. Joining me today is Will, so let's get started. So it's been almost 16 years since the first Animal Crossing on Gamecube came out, which makes me feel extremely old.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how about you start off? What are your memories, or how did you first get introduced to the series?
Man, so the first time I think I heard about Animal Crossing was with those weird live action commercials. And, it had like the bodysuits and the big horns. And I was like, what on earth is this? But I think there was one time I was at the mall at EB Games and they had it used there for like, I don't know, $25 or something. And I was like, well, what the heck? I need another GameCube game. I guess I'll try this out. And, the friends that I was with at the mall at the time were like, oh, that game looks stupid. There's no point to it. It's really dumb. It's for kids. But I was like, well, I'm going to get it anyway. I just can't believe that it's been almost, 15 years for me, because I picked it up around 2003 when I was in 8th grade, which, yeah, you're right. That does make me feel old. But the commercial I remember was something about like, oh, it's been months since Billy's mowed the lawn. I can't believe he's so lazy.
Wow.
What about you?
So I actually rented the game from Blockbuster on accident. Because I remember seeing this ad in Nintendo Power for a game called Zoo Cube, which was a puzzle game. And this is something that I've been trying to remember for years, because I always knew that I rented the game on accident. But me and you had a discussion about our memories with this game a while back.
Yeah.
And I couldn't remember the name of the game. So eventually I just looked up on Google. I was like, animal puzzle game for GameCube. And I saw Zoo Cube, and right when I saw the cover art, I was like, yep, that's it. That's absolutely the game.
So you mistook it?
Yeah, I completely mistook it for a completely different game. But I'm glad I did, because when I got home and played it, I played it the whole night, and one of my older brothers watched me play it, and we just had so much fun with it. And yeah, I mean, that was the first time I got introduced to it. It wasn't because somebody told me about it. But I ended up finding out after that some of my friends at school who also had a GameCube were also playing the game. So it's almost like one of those things. You said your friends made fun of you for it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like nobody really wanted to admit that they were playing it for whatever reason. It's like, I don't even get that, but because it's such a fun game. But
yeah, I remember it being like a guilty pleasure. Like I didn't. Like after that moment when I bought the game, I never really talked to, my friends at the time, like, oh, I've been playing Animal Crossing, and I just kind of kept it to myself, but I loved it. And like I said, it was definitely a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, but it's a game just on a lazy day or a sick day or something that you could just play, and it was just easy to play. There was no worries to have while playing that game. So
yeah, like you said, one of the most nostalgic things for me about the series is, just kind of poking at it on a sick day. I remember whenever I would stay home from school, not feeling well, that was like my go-to game, because there's low stress. You don't have to think about it. You can just kind of mosey around. And so I spent a lot of time when I wasn't feeling well playing that game. And it's just kind of like therapy or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So speaking of that, do you have any funny or interesting stories about the first one?
I mean, one of the things that sticks out to me is the feeling of anxiety when I took something from the police station that didn't belong to me. And I feel like I remember you talking about that too, but it's just funny that you feel nervous when all it is a police dog who's like, he was like, "Oh, if there's something here that belongs to you, you can take it." And you're like, "Oh my God, this is mine."
Yeah, that was one of my experiences the first night I played the game, because I got home, I think it was like around 7 p.m. or something when I actually started playing the game at night. And like I said earlier, my older brother was watching me, so one of the first things I did, like obviously you get settled into your town and you have to talk to Tom Nook and everything, but once I started wandering around, I found the police station. I walked in, and the guy said, "Oh, if you see anything that's yours, you can take it." And so in my mind, I thought, well, I also had peer pressure from my brother saying, "Oh, you should just take something. Obviously, it's not yours, but just take it anyways and see what happens." But in my mind, I was thinking, well, this is a police officer, so if I take something that's not mine, I'm going to get arrested or something. But I went along with it, and I just took something that wasn't mine. And if I remember correctly, I think it was a carpet or something. And then so right when I grabbed it, I just ran out of there and then ran back to my house and then just like stood in there waiting for the cops to show up.
Wow.
And of course, me and my brother just got a kick out of it, and we're laughing like, "Oh, this doesn't even belong to me. I just stole it." And of course, it ends up that you can just do that and there's no consequence at all. So
yeah, once I found out there was no consequence, I took everything from that store, or not the store, that store. I just took everything.
Yeah, what if you could steal stuff from the actual stores?
Yeah. Like break in at night.
Well, we just thought of a great new idea for the new game.
Yeah.
You got to be able to be a thug. But yeah, that was probably the most, like, I'll never forget that story, I don't think, just because that's what got me into the game, really, because it showed me the variety of things that you could do right off the bat. Like, oh, I didn't expect I could just steal stuff from the Lost and Found,
And I think I picked the game up right around the end of fall, because I probably would have got it in November sometime in the following year, like 2003. And that was one of the biggest memories for me was the holiday events, because I distinctly remember playing it the Christmas after I got it, like on Christmas Eve. And me and my sister were just huddled around the TV like, "Oh my God, this has an actual holiday event." It just had the atmosphere of real life Christmas, but in the game. So it became this tradition for both of us to log into Animal Crossing on holiday events, just to, I don't know, kind of get in the mood for that certain holiday. And that definitely stuck with me as one of my favorite moments in those games.
Yeah, for sure. I think I remember we saw that the original release date for this was September, the year that it came out.
Yeah.
And I vaguely remember that the first event that I saw was some kind of... Was there a Halloween event in the first game? Because I swear that was the first one that I saw, unless I'm mistaking it for something else. But now I feel like I have to look that up real quick. But yeah, no, that was a big thing, like, especially the internal clock. When I first bought the game, again, it was basically nighttime. And so when we woke up the next day and started playing it and it was daytime, and we noticed that there was, like, the clock that was in the game matched up to real time.
Yeah, that was huge.
That blew my mind, because I never played a game that was like that. So
yeah, I hadn't either. And and even still, I don't think any game has kind of captured, I don't know, kind of the passage of time like Animal Crossing has. Especially the seasons. Like, I love the season change, and that's kind of at a more macro level. Like, you've got the daily time changes, kind of the lighting change, where you can go and access changes throughout the day. And then, beyond that, seasons change. And it feels like, if you took a year off from the game and you log back in, it feels like you have been gone a year.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure. That's why I'm afraid to turn on New Leaf right now.
Yeah.
It's been so long since I played it. But Yeah. Also, I just looked up real quick that the Halloween event was in the first game, so I'm pretty sure that was the first event that I saw. Because I'm pretty sure I played the game not too long after it came out, which I guess was just luck on my end. But yeah, the whole event system or the holiday system and everything really was a big step forward for life sims, because before that, the only game that I ever really knew of was The Sims, and I never cared to play it. I had a lot of friends who played The Sims, but and again, I rented Animal Crossing basically on accident. And don't ask me how that even happened. I don't know how I confused the two games. I just saw Animal Crossing, and I was like, oh, that's that game I saw an ad for in Nintendo Power. But somehow I thought that, and I'm so glad I rented the wrong game. So.
Well, even with The Sims, the passage of time is a little different in there.
Yeah.
It's like a sped up version of it, whereas in Animal Crossing, it's like for like a minute is a minute, which I thought was really cool.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I also really liked in the first game was the first time that Nook's Cranny upgraded to a bigger store, a bigger and better store. That was something I never expected to happen, because I was used to playing games at that point in my life where things were pretty static, like if you had a store or you had a shop or something, then that's just the way it was, for the whole game. But, Animal Crossing really, it has a good way of keeping things interesting, no matter how long you keep playing it.
I like what you said about other games being static. In the Animal Crossing Gamecube, it definitely felt dynamic. Back to the whole time change thing, where like you log in at like 7 p.m. and you can't get in Nook's store. It just kind of changes what you can do throughout the day, which was really cool to me.
And there's some people who don't like that aspect, but for me, that's what makes the series so engaging. It's like, okay, I only have from this time to that time to do these certain things, and then after that period of time, then I can do these activities. It's almost like I set a schedule for myself for that world.
Definitely.
And there's not any other game I can think of where I can do that, and it's just fun. It's something fun to keep in mind, and like. We both said already, like it just changes the way you interact with the entire world because of those unique mechanics. So,
and especially the handheld ones, it's almost like it became part of my daily routine. Like, okay, I will get back from school and I'll log into Animal Crossing for 30 minutes, run around, do some stuff, and then go from there.
Yeah, and I know I'm getting really ahead of our conversation, but that makes me even more excited for when it comes to Switch. Because that's just like the best of both worlds. So, but anyways, another thing that I know that we are both really big fans of is seasons changing. And my favorite season has always been fall, ever since the first game. And that's my favorite season in real life too. But it's so cool how that something that I love in real life carries over into Animal Crossing. Like again, it's something that not many, I can't even think of any games that do that, where it's like, okay, it's summer in real life, it's summer in Animal Crossing, do any games do that? I mean, because I can't.
Not that I know of, but I know what you're talking about, because there's a certain atmosphere that real life gets when it's transitioning from summer to fall. And I don't know if I'm just making it up in my head, but I feel like the game also captures that kind of feeling. Like the days are getting shorter. There's like a crispness to the air. And, like the festive season is upon us. The game somehow captures it, but I may be injecting real life into the game. But the fact that you can do that is just a testament to how flexible and creative you can get with your own experience with the game,
So here's a question. So in the first game, I never cared about upgrading my house. For whatever reason, I never cared about expanding it. I just liked walking around and talking to the villagers. That changed drastically as I played more of the games. So like with Wild World, that was the first one where I actually cared about making my house bigger. But I never cared about that in the first game. So was that different for you?
That's, I never thought about that, but I think you're right. The way I played the GameCube one is a lot different than I think I've played any of the ones since. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the house upgrade stuff. I never thought about it. It was kind of just a byproduct of playing the game. Like, oh, I have enough bells, I guess I'll do that. It wasn't like I'm gonna go farm beetles, which also getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. But somehow the emphasis changed. Maybe it's just as I got older, you think more about money.
I guess
finances, so start doing that in the game too. It's like I really got to consider my finances in Animal Crossing.
And your taxes, and that'll be
in
the new game.
Got to pay that Nook tax.
Yeah, that's something that I actually just thought of right now. Just thinking about one thing that the original game had. I don't know how correct I am in saying this, but you would always have those 4 houses right next to each other. You remember? Like, so basically you could have 4 files on the same world or whatever, or the same village. And that changed a lot in Wild World, because Wild World, that was the first game where when you upgraded your house, you visually saw the difference from the outside, right? Because I don't remember that being in the GameCube one, but maybe it's just because I never really upgraded my house that much. Yeah. But now I need to look that up too, because let's see, Mansion GameCube. Do you remember that being a thing in the GameCube one? Because I don't remember the house actually looking different as you upgraded it.
I can't picture it, and it's probably like you said, because I never really focused on that. It was more, and this kind of gets into some changes that the series has made, but I kind of felt like the GameCube one, it had a little bit more sense of community, and I think it's because, like you mentioned, the houses were kind of like in a little square. It's like almost like a little neighborhood of real people mixed in with the town. But yeah, I can't recall if the house is actually visually upgraded or not.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture right now. It looks like they did, but it isn't to the same degree of how it was in like Wild World. And
I may have never actually got my house upgraded in the original one.
I think I might have upgraded it once or twice, but that was it. And I think maybe part of that was just because it seemed maybe a little bit harder to get money in the first game. Like you said earlier, like catching beetles for New Leaf, that definitely wasn't a thing back then. But and I didn't time travel like I did in Wild World. That was the only reason I ever got my house upgraded in that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of Wild World, so what did you think of Wild World going from the GameCube one to Wild World? Like, did it seem like it satisfied what you wanted out of a sequel?
Definitely. I felt like the jump between the GameCube one and Wild World was massive. And a lot of the things that Wild World changed are still around in the newer ones. So I guess you could say it's kind of a game changer. And I played tons of Wild World, hours and hours. And I mean, I remember going over to your guys' house, and I would always bring my DS and Wild World because I knew that we would just run around in each other's towns, like just hide and seek or trading items or doing whatever.
Yeah, I totally agree. I liked Wild World even more than the first game. And that was the first Animal Crossing that I really got hooked on. I played that. That game was easily my most played game on the DS. Because I really didn't play that many DS games, honestly, now that I think about it. But Wild World alone was the whole reason I wanted a DS. That and Mario Kart. So, yeah, that game was huge. And we, like you said, we played it so much. And I remember that was back in the day when my family, we didn't even have a router, so I couldn't really connect to Wi-Fi from our own house. because we were still like hardwired internet, like from the phone line pretty much. So, so I would actually steal our neighbor's internet because he had a router and he didn't have it password protected. So I would sit out in our garage and use his router just so I could play Wild World with you online sometimes.
Man, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and we did that for Mario Kart also. And when I say we, I'm talking about me and my brothers. But yeah, it really was a big improvement from GameCube. Just overall, it added so much more that you could do. And just the town itself, I know some people like the more tiled, sectioned layout of the GameCube game. Like, you know what I'm talking about.
Right, yeah.
But I like that they changed that. I love the GameCube game. I have a lot of nostalgia for it, obviously. But I like the way they did how the world like turns as you walk across it in the Wild World.
Yeah, the cylinder.
Yeah, and they've stuck with that ever since then, and I think I can understand why it's pretty unique to the series. I can't think of any other games that do that offhand, but yeah, and then I think one thing we both agree on is that the inclusion of Nintendo items like hats and costumes and everything, and just like items, I think the Metroid was in Wild World, right?
Yep, I definitely was, because I know for a fact that I was on the hunt from that. Like, as soon as I found out that there was the Metroid container from Super Metroid, like, I was dead set on getting that thing. I'm like, this is the item I need. And I think the only way to get that was with the UFO. Like, you had to be out at night and have the UFO sighting and then shoot the slingshot. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
But I just know that the Metroid drop rate was so low, but I spent so much time, because like whenever I would go over to your guys' house for like a sleepover back in the day, that was like the thing to do. Like, as we're winding down, like just log into Animal Crossing at night and just kind of run around and hope to God that you see a UFO so you can get a Nintendo item.
Yep. Yeah, the UFO sightings in Wild World were always a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, there was so much in Wild World that they added that made it more fun overall. I think. Oh, what were you gonna say?
Sorry, it's hard to even know where to begin with it because of how many features got changed between GameCube and Wild World.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was that you could actually play with other people in real time, So in GameCube, all you could really do was share a town. But with Wild World, you could actually play with other people in the same town together, just run around together. And like you were saying, play hide and seek, just make up your own games. It was a lot of fun.
Right. And I think there is something to be said for the asynchronous style multiplayer. Like, what I'm talking about. It's more passive, where you can like leave a note for someone or drop a present off while they're not there. But like you said, the ability to actually, in parallel play multiplayer online, that was like, holy crap.
Yeah, that was a big deal. But
the funny thing is, I went back to Wild World like a year ago because I was just curious, because I still had my DS Lite and it was sitting there. And I saw Wild World on my shelf, and I'm like, I wonder what's going on in there. So I logged in, and one of the animals in the town who was in my original game was still there, surprisingly.
Oh my God.
And they're like, where have you been? I haven't seen you in 1,875 days. I was like, wow, it's been a while. I felt sort of bad, almost like the town had kind of rotted away. Like, I left you guys for New Leaf. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But after Wild World, there was the big innovation, and that was City Folk.
Yeah, so just real quick, I'll tell my story about City Folk. I was excited for City Folk at first. The day that it came out, I had it reserved at Best Buy, first off. And me and my older brother Josh, we were both really excited for it. So we went to go pick it up that day. I was really sick. I had the flu or something. So we went and picked it up. And on the way home, I threw up. He had to pull to the side of the road and I threw up. And that was like a metaphor for how I felt about that game going forward. Because every time I played that game, it was just so boring. It felt like all they did was took Wild World and put it on the Wii. Except it felt worse somehow. I don't know what it was, but it didn't have any of the improvements that Wild World had going from the GameCube game.
Yeah.
And I think that's overall what made it so bland. Because it's weird, because you'd think because I liked Wild World, I would have loved City Folk just as much, but that's not really how it works for me. If I play a game and it feels exactly like the last game, I usually don't like it that much. I expect more, I guess, you know?
It's because you feel like you've already
played it.
Yeah, you've experienced that content already.
Uh-huh.
The only thing City Folk added was a tacked on quote city
yeah,
where there was nothing to do but get a balloon. And honestly, that is the only feature I remember them adding in City Folk is freaking balloons.
Yeah, I remember, I mean, the city edition, it seemed like a neat idea at first, but I hated how you had to keep riding the train or whatever it was there, or I think it was a bus actually. Every single time you went there, you had to ride this thing, and then you had to ride it back, and there'd usually be somebody who would talk to you on the bus, dragging out your journey even longer, and
I felt like
felt...
the load times were longer than the amount of time you actually spent in the city.
Yeah, that's what it felt like, so... I just didn't enjoy it that much.
And it's such a missed opportunity, I felt like, at the time, because I was thinking, okay, another console Animal Crossing. Haven't had one since GCN. This is going to be like a combination of the GameCube one and Wild World. It's going to be amazing. And I booted it and I'm like, okay, even the soundtrack is the same as Wild World. Really?
Yeah, I remember you telling me that, and at first I didn't believe you, so I looked it up, and yeah, it really was, and that just shows how little I played of City Folk. I don't even remember what the soundtrack was, but maybe that's why it was so forgettable, is because there wasn't anything really unique about it. So
yeah,
it was really disappointing, and that was around the time where I actually. I'm getting way off track here, but that was around the time where I just pretty much stopped playing the Wii for a couple years because that game was disappointing. Smash Brothers Brawl was pretty disappointing to me, so it was just a bad time for Nintendo in my mind. So
yeah, I hear you.
But luckily, on the 3DS, they came out with New Leaf, which that got me back into the series heavily. I was addicted to that game for a very, very long time. It fixed all of the problems I had with City Folk. So, you know how in New Leaf you have all the shop area, basically like the strip mall is pretty much what it is. And you could just walk straight into it. You know, you didn't have to take a bus, you didn't have to take a train or whatever. You could just go straight there, do what you have to do, come back. They added the island, which was a huge addition for me. I loved going to the island. I loved how you could do it online and play with people you didn't even know. I just loved New Leaf so much. You could be the mayor, or you were the mayor. I guess you didn't really have a choice. And that added so much more stuff to do, like adding bridges and so many other things. Yeah, I love it. I love New Leaf so much. I think overall it's definitely my favorite so far in the series. And it's gonna be hard to top it. Maybe that's why it's been so long since there's been a new game. But what are your thoughts on New Leaf?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much echoing yours. It was definitely a resurgence for me after City Folk. Like we said, I'd kind of fallen away, and I was like, Animal Crossing. But you know, once I got New Leaf, I was like, oh man, I'm back in. And like just checking my game time on that, I have like 360 hours in Animal Crossing. I don't know how that happened, but I think it's my most played 3DS game.
Mhm.
And it's not like I played for like 6 hours at a time. I'm sure there were some days in the summer where I did do that. But it was mostly just like I mentioned earlier, it became part of my routine. Come home from work, hop on Animal Crossing for 30 minutes, and you do that every day. That adds up over time, and and you spend so much time with a game, and you start developing a fondness for it. And like even this past week, I logged into New Leaf because I'm like, well, I wonder what's going on, and I'm really wanting a new Animal Crossing, so I'll like satiate that desire by, I don't know, popping into New Leaf. I feel like it's kind of run its course. Like whenever I do hop in, it's more for nostalgia reasons. I'm like, hey, I go visit my old town that I put 360 hours in.
Yeah.
There's not much that I want to do while I'm in there. So I just kind of roam around, look around, and then hop off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, New Leaf is fantastic. The only thing that is a little off about it was, I think we already mentioned it, but beetle farming.
Yeah. That, and that's something. One of my other brothers, I have two older brothers. One of them loves New Leaf. The other one, my brother Ryan, he didn't really like New Leaf, and it was because of the beetle farming. He said he felt like it was the only way to get money, and after he figured out that strategy, he didn't want to play it anymore, which, I don't know, like, I guess, to each their own. I didn't mind the beetle farming. It actually, it was an easy way to make money for a while, and then after I got bored of it, I just stopped doing it and tried to find other ways to make money. But it's hard to think of a way to make money quick in Animal Crossing without some kind of weird exploit, because a lot of people might time travel or things like that. I never time traveled in New Leaf. I did it in Wild World, but when I picked up New Leaf, I decided from day one that I would never time travel.
That's a good point, because I consciously made that same decision because I felt like I broke the game in Wild World when I did that, and I was like, I want to play this one legit. So
yeah,
that's funny.
Wrong, So
we're so honorable.
I know, right?
We should write a letter to Reggie. Reggie, I played through all of New Leaf without cheating once.
Yeah, and then he'll talk about his New Leaf town. All right, that's it. I need to go back to.
That's all the time I have left. I got to get back to my town in Animal Crossing New Leaf for the Nintendo 3DS.
You're definitely not reading a script, Reggie. Yeah, but what were we talking about? Something. Oh yeah, beetle farming.
Oh yeah.
So I hope that doesn't come back in the new game. If it does, I might use it as a way to get money for a little bit. I just said I hope it doesn't come back, but if it does, it won't bother me. But I won't get into it right now. We'll go about.
Right. Yeah.
We'll talk about our ideas for the future in a little bit. But real quick,
they need to have a beetle farming support group. I've tried to stop, but I just can't.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'd have to be signed up for that.
I can see where Ryan's coming from, because once I found out about the mechanic, I chopped down like every tree on the island except for 3 of them, because that was the optimal pattern to have. And I did have this urge when I went into Animal Crossing. I'm like, okay, I'll just go do some beetle farming. And I would do that for an hour and a half. I'm like, what have I done? All I've done is beetle farm. So it slightly broke the game for me, but not enough to where I'm like, I'm never playing this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it didn't make me dislike the game, but like you said, I mean, I understand what he's saying. But, anyways, just real quick, let's go back to Wild World just for a sec. Do you have any stories or standout memories from that game?
I mean, the biggest one, I kind of already touched on it, is just playing it with friends. I can't think of a particular moment in the game, like an interaction with a townsperson or anything like that, but just the social experience and it's more the in-person social experience.
Oh
Like
yeah.
like playing online is one thing, but just the act of like bringing my DS over to your guys' house and all of us like popping it open and talking in person while playing in the game, that is my favorite memory with that game for sure.
Oh yeah. I'm sure when I start saying this, you'll remember this, but we used to go to Ryan's town in Animal Crossing Wild World, and it was just a running gag for, I think, the entirety of when we owned that game, that every time we'd go into his town, we would destroy his flowers. And he would get so mad. But it was so funny. It's just, I'd be running around looking for any flowers I could find. And I'd wait until Ryan would see me doing it too. And I'd just start dashing back through the flowers over and over until they would get destroyed. And he'd be like, "Stop destroying my flowers."
Couldn't you
I just planted those.
Couldn't you drop patterns on people's ground?
Oh, yeah, you could do that too.
I remember we would run off out of sight from Ryan and just start trying to cover his entire ground with patterns.
And then eventually you'd see him finally find you, and you'd see him in the distance just start pulling all the patterns up off the ground.
Yeah. God, I remember that.
Oh, that was great. So how about New Leaf? Any stories or memories?
It was just, it's funny, most of the nostalgic things that I bring up with these isn't like a particular moment, but more of just an experience with the game. And the biggest one with New Leaf was the summer it came out, because I think it came out in June, and I had just started work, and so I had moved to a new city, and you lose friends, not lose friends, but you're not around your friends as much. Everyone stops talking to you when you move.
Yeah.
But I was sad and lonely. But no, so having a new Animal Crossing was kind of comforting. And I just remember like lounging around on the couch on a super hot June day, just fishing. And it was kind of just relaxing and comforting to have that familiar feeling. Because it took me back to all the other experiences I had with Animal Crossing. And yeah, it's an experience, man.
Yeah.
What about you?
So, okay, I have two standout memories from New Leaf. So me and my brother Josh, we did a lot of beetle farming, and a lot of the time we would go into the island together, and then we'd open up the. I don't remember exactly how it worked, but somehow we always got in the same island lobby, and then we'd wait for random people to show up, just so we could fool around with them or whatever while we're doing the beetle farming, just to make it more fun and interesting, But a lot of times, if Josh was having bad luck, or if he just wanted to be a troll, he would go into lobbies and I would go with him just because I got a kick out of it, even though it was so mean to do. And again, this was a few years ago. Okay, I've grown up since then. But he would go into somebody's island, and a lot of the times people would say, I guess because this would happen a lot, but they'd be like, "I have 8 beetles right now. Please don't quit on me," or something. Like they don't want you to disconnect, I guess, because then they would lose everything that they have. And then Josh would wait for somebody to say that, and then he'd flip that little switch on the 3DS that would turn off your internet connection. You remember that on the it was on the original 3DS. Yeah, he'd just flip it, and then it would end the connection.
Oh, man.
And then they would lose everything that they got. And it's so mean. It's like, to think back on that. It was funny at the time, and again, like I was younger, I didn't, and it wasn't even me doing it. Okay, all the blame goes on him.
Sure.
but he would do that, and I would crack up, and he'd be cracking up. But it was so mean. But a lot of the times, I would go into the island just by myself and play and meet people. Sometimes we'd exchange friend codes, and that way we could visit each other's towns. One time I met somebody who I wish I had never met, and so they told me to come to their town, and I was like, okay, sure, whatever. They seemed very normal at first. Once I got to their town, they started taking me to all these different houses that they had, because they had like different files on the same cartridge. And they said, "Oh, this is my older sister's house." And she's like, typing into the little air bubble things in Animal Crossing, saying all this stuff. And she's like, oh, my older sister, she wants to talk to you. And so then somebody else, I think it was the same person still saying all this stuff.
Probably.
It sounded like a little kid is what it sounded like, which is what made it more awkward. But they're like, yeah, this is my older sister now, and she wants to ask you something. And she gets in and she's like, hi, I'm whoever. I don't remember what they said their name was. And then, the conversation was just weird. And then they're like, you want to be my boyfriend? And then right then I just flipped off I flipped my internet switch, disconnected. And then I just deleted them from my 3DS friend list. I was like, that is like such a weird, like I don't want to get too, I don't even remember the whole conversation. I just remember they're like, you want to be my boyfriend? And then I just flipped the switch. I was like, this has gone too far, way too quick. And it's just weird. So
we need to take this slow. At least take me to Brewster's first.
Yeah. Well, it was weird. So
speaking of Brewster's, that was one of my favorite memories with that game because I like coffee. I like coffee, and so it's like I could add getting coffee to my Animal Crossing routine the same way that I do in real life. And it's funny because now I actually have a real life coffee mug with Brewster on it. So it's it's like bleeding into my real life. So I loved Brewster's. It actually had like a little coffee shop atmosphere going on. And I really like the music in there too. And how different animals would show up at different times in the coffee shop. You could talk to them. If you go there enough, then you kind of develop a relationship with Brewster, and he gives you like special coffees, or eventually you'll have, I'll take the usual. So just stuff like that. And
it's just those small touches, those small details that really add up.
Loved it.
I had one more memory from New Leaf that I have to say because it still makes me upset, is that my brother Josh stole Fauna, the little deer, from my town, and that made me so mad. That was my favorite villager in my town, and he knew it too. He did it on purpose. I know he did. Every time he'd come to my town, he would always talk to Fauna, and I'd be like, Josh, you better not be talking to my villagers, because if somebody from another town talks to them enough, they'll finally ask like, oh, I should move to your town, and it's like, that made me so upset.
What a shame. And actually, I hate to feel like I'm jumping around so much, but you mentioned the villagers, but that's another thing that I loved about the series is kind of figuring out what all animals are in the game. And that was one of my favorite things going back to the GameCube one, was what all animals are in this game. Like they all have a pretty unique design. And I remember getting this calendar in an issue of Nintendo Power that had like a list of animals on it. And I kept that calendar for years just because I don't know why. I mean, a calendar is relevant after that year is over, but I just kept it around in like a manila envelope or something because I'm like, what animals are in this game? I want to see if I can get Camo Frog or something.
Camo Frog? Oh, God. Yeah, I remember Rod specifically, the little rat who was always such a D-bag. He was always a jerk. Or, no. Yeah, no, I think it was Rod. Yeah.
Oh, I remember him too. Stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, the art style just in general for Animal Crossing is really unique, so it's always fun. It's always really exciting when I see a little sign on the ground saying that a new villager is coming, because I can't wait to see, especially if it's like for a name that I don't recognize. Even though when somebody's moving in, does it even say their name? I don't remember.
I don't think so.
Okay, so there's always that anticipation, like, oh, I wonder who it's going to be. So
yeah, you like log in the next day and then you run to that spot and go, it's you.
It's like the first thing you'll do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I love it. I love it so much. So anyways, we talked a lot about the old games. So how about the future of the series? Because right now we don't have an Animal Crossing announced. So it's really fun to think about what are some changes that they could do or things that you would want to see in a new Animal Crossing game. And on top of that, this is going to be the first real Animal Crossing, not counting whatever that party game was called. It's going to be the first real Animal Crossing in HD, which is awesome. And which it makes me want one even more. Please, Nintendo. So what's some of the stuff that you would like to see?
So, at a very high level, and this is going to sound really abstract, but bring back some of the quirkiness. I know that is very vague, and maybe it's just all in my head, but something about the GameCube one felt more goofy and quirky and whimsical than the later ones in the series. And I don't say that to take away from the later ones. I've already talked about how much I love them. But if they could bring back some of the oddballness in the new one, I would really love that. And that's, again, super non-specific. I know it's really vague, but I have more actual specific ideas, but that was just kind of a very high level thought that I had.
Yeah, and just to touch on the quirkiness, I don't know what it is for you, but it might be that you're walking around as a character that has horns on their head for no real reason.
And it may also have been the soundtrack.
The soundtrack, yeah, that was the other thing I was gonna say. Is the soundtrack in the first game is way different than the later games. So
and I still loved the soundtrack, but yeah.
Yeah, my favorite soundtrack personally is New Leaf, but I do really like the GameCube soundtrack. And actually, I like Wild Worlds too. I like all of them, honestly. I mean, City Folks obviously was just a rehash for the most part, but yeah, all the music throughout the series is good. So,
but for a more, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say my first thing is that I don't really want it to just be New Leaf in HD, and I don't think that's what it would be with how long it's been. I don't think we're gonna get just another Animal Crossing just like New Leaf. I think right now is the perfect time for them to really, I don't know, take it to the next level, because they haven't had a console Animal Crossing in a very long time. So, and with the Switch being so big, you know, it's like now's your chance to really push this series higher than it's ever been. So, and even if it was New Leaf HD, I would buy it. I'm sure I would still play it. But, and obviously I know that it's not going to be like New Leaf HD. I know they would give it a new title. But I'm thinking along the lines of like City Folk was a lot like Wild World. I want something that feels like New Leaf or Wild World in terms of all the additions that they made. Yeah. So, what are some of the ideas that you have of how they could change it?
I think one thing would be more narrative threads between you and the animals. You know, as much as I loved New Leaf, I felt like some of the interaction between the animals was a little bit shallow or repetitive. Because once you've experienced a personality trait of one animal, there could be multiple animals with that personality trait, so it feels a little repetitive. And it didn't feel like there was so much depth with it. So I think one change that could really set this one apart is, I hate to use the word story, because, you know, you can't really throw cutscenes into Animal Crossing, but I guess more narrative is just kind of a grouping that I would throw that under.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much something I have down to, is just to have more personalities for animals and ways to interact with them. I mean, that's basically what you're getting at, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Because you can only do, like, go get medicine and return a lost item so many times before you just don't want to do it again.
Yeah.
So having different quests that span more than like 5 minutes and just going and talking from this person to that person, I think that could expand the feel of the game quite a bit, as if they just have different variety of quests.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a big improvement, because in terms of like quests that animals give you, it's never been very varied, you know, in terms of what they'll give you to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I totally agree with that. I do think they did a good job with New Leaf of making you kind of feel like you were getting closer to your neighbors or your villagers, just because I don't know if New Leaf was the first one to do it, but New Leaf was the first game where I ever was able to invite a villager to come over to my house, and then I could set the date and time that I wanted them to come over. That was really cool. So I liked things like that, but...
And the ability to get a portrait of an animal if you become, I guess, good enough friends.
Yeah, that was really cool too. So
one other really big feature that I know we've talked about a lot is like a persistent online shared community or a shared town. So, you know, one of the ideas that we've talked about was rather than just having your isolated town and the ability to visit other people's towns, you know, what if you could almost collaborate on a shared town and it's more of a persistent online community? And that solves one of the problems, you know, with just getting older, is that everyone kind of spread out and dispersed. And so using the Switches better online, you could almost bring friends back together by introducing more robust online features.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love that idea. That would be the thing I would want to see the most, because like you said, it's an even better way to feel connected with your friends who also play Animal Crossing. And it's something that really hasn't been able to be done since the first game. Well, I guess that's not true. You could make multiple files on, especially City Folk, obviously, but even on Wild World and New Leaf, you could make more than one file and put a new house in your town. But it's never something that you'd be able to do with people who live outside of your house, really. You know, like unless you had a friend that came over and made a file, but that isn't something that's going to be as persistent. You know, I want to be able to share a town online with my friends, and I even have written down here in my notes, like maybe it's a little too ambitious, but I don't know. I think they could do it. I think they could do it if they tried hard enough, and yeah, but it is a really out there idea.
It is. It comes with a lot of problems, but
yeah,
I think the potential of it, for me, would be just fantastic. Like, I think that would keep me coming back to that game way more than even the other one, which is kind of scary. Considering I put 360 hours in the New Leaf. If they do that, I don't know what. I basically, you know, might as well be a VR game, and I unplug from reality and just live in my town.
Yeah. One thing that I think would be the coolest thing about it would be, say you're getting on, you're about to just hop into your town and do some stuff. You get into your town, and then you just see one of your friends walking around doing stuff too.
Yes.
You don't even schedule, like, you know, oh, you want to play Animal Crossing right now. You don't even have to do that. Like, if you get on and they're on, they're just there. You can see them.
Dude, that is, yes, absolutely. That makes it feel cool. So much more alive.
Oh, yeah.
If you're listening, Nintendo, you gotta do
Hey, free ideas, you know, just steal them. That's okay.
I mean, other games have done things less complicated than this. It's not impossible. But
yeah, it's not impossible. But like you said earlier, there are problems that come with it. Like, what if you don't have an online connection and you want to go into that town and do stuff? Like, can you even go into that town and do stuff? Or, you know, there are some problems with it, but I don't know. I think it would be worth trying, you know?
Yeah.
So... another thing I have down that it might sound weird, but I put down let animals get married or something. Because you have relationships with the animals yourself, and I don't want to be able to marry an animal. I think that might be going just a little too far, but and I'm sure some people would maybe want that, but I personally don't. So what if your animals could... New Leaf tapped into a little of some of the
Yeah.
villagers being able to communicate together. And I thought that was really cool, but take it a step further and let them get married, which, again, I know it sounds weird, but wouldn't it bring even more personality to these animals?
I think it would
If
be
you-
hilarious.
Yeah, it would be funny too. Like, oh my gosh, Rod and whoever else, Fauna
Elf.
got married. Like, what a weird pair. But I don't know. I think it'd be cool. And what would be even stranger is if they could have little villager kids. But I don't even want to go into that territory because I don't think they would do that.
No.
But I don't know. I think it would be cool if something like that happened. It would be a new addition that would just make it feel like a real new entry, you know, because that's just not possible in the other games.
Yeah.
So, you have any more ideas?
One thing I had down was timed events. So think like Splatfest in Splatoon.
Yeah.
Just to keep me coming back later. Like, for example, let's say a new F-Zero comes out. They do an F-Zero event in Animal, and you know, for a certain window of time, you can go in. Maybe there's a mini game, and you get Captain Falcon's helmet. Like little stuff like that, where you know you have a window of time to go do a thing in the game. One, it makes the game feel more dynamic, and it would distinguish the years apart. So I love the holidays and I love the seasons, but they happen the same way every single year. And so having more online events that are different and change, I think makes each year feel unique. Because then, you know, in the future, 10 years after you've played the game, you could all like have another nostalgia talk where we're like, hey man, you remember that one time in 2019 July they had that weird wacky summer event and blah blah blah.
Oh yeah, that sounds great. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, that sounds really, really good. In your comparison to Splatfest, I mean, that's just perfect. It obviously it'd work a lot different, but yeah, no, that sounds awesome. I'd love to see that. And honestly, with Nintendo having a more online presence now, I think you might be onto something with that. That sounds like something we probably will see in the new game. So
Oh yeah, that would be much easier than the persistent online, but yeah, I could totally see that happening.
oh yeah. Another thing I have down is a fully 3D world, which I know might sound crazy, but I want to see my Animal Crossing town like never before. We've had the whole cylinder turning thing since Wild World, and I love that. And if that comes back, okay, that's fine. But ever since Mario Kart 8, when they did that Animal Crossing stage, or the Animal Crossing track in that game, and you see, like, you know, the animals in full 3D, like, all the way behind, like, I know you can already see your animals in 3D in the games, but, like, you can see behind, like, the buildings and behind the trees, like, everything's in full 3D. That would be so cool. I would love to see them do that. I want to explore my town in a completely different way that you never could before.
That would set that one apart. Like,
oh yeah,
big
that
time.
would be such a huge step forward. But, or you know, maybe for some people it'd be a step back if they don't like it. But it would really, like you just said, it would really set it apart. It would make it feel like a true, I don't know, next gen Animal Crossing or current. You know, like, I don't know. I just feel like they have to go above and beyond with this new one, since it's the first real HD game, and with them having more powerful hardware to work on now, maybe that'll give them access to doing things they couldn't do before. So, yeah, I don't know. That's just a pipe dream for me, I guess, because I don't think they're actually going to do that personally, but I would love to see them try.
Yeah.
How about you? Anything else?
I mean, I think I could go on for days with features that I want to add, but I guess just kind of to summarize, you know, my hopes, it's like you said, you know, add something that distinguishes this one from everything before it. More robust online capabilities, more customizations, and just, you know, the promise of the Switch just gives me hope that we're gonna get that next evolution of Animal Crossing. I don't think it's gonna be another City Folk style. So I just hope that it's like late 2018, which it's not, or 2019. I don't want to have to wait till 2020. I really want it next year.
Yeah, same here. But hey, you know, you heard it here first. I have a hot scoop. It's actually coming out this year. Oh my god. Reggie just texted me. No, yeah, I completely agree. I hope so bad that it's next year. I do have one more thing that I just want to say, and that's whenever I go into somebody's house in any of the Animal Crossing games, I wish the transition between each room was more seamless. So I wish that in the new game, there's like hallways or something, and you can just seamlessly transition into another room with no load screen.
Yes.
None of that. Just let us explore somebody's house without any of these kind of artificial barriers in place.
Please, yes.
I would love to see that. So I hope they do something like that. But aside from that, I don't really have anything else to say as far as hopes for a new game goes. But I mean, I agree with everything that you just said. It just needs to really set itself apart. So, but yeah, I think that about does it, right? You have anything else you want to close out with?
Closing thoughts. I mean, Animal Crossing is, you know, one of the most nostalgic series that I've ever played. It's definitely got a fond spot in my heart for everything that I've described in this talk already. Just, you know, the shared experience with friends, the lazy afternoons, fishing at sunrise when it's raining. It's just all around, I love the series, and I can't wait for it to come back.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love Animal Crossing. It really is a series like no other. I don't feel like there's any series that I could use to replace it. I know you've tried. I've never tried. What's that game called? Something Valley.
Stardew Valley.
Yeah, Stardew Valley. I've seen some people say that game is helping them wait for the next Animal Crossing, but I don't like. When I look at that game, I can tell it's not like Animal Crossing. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So I want the series to come back. I know it's not necessarily a series that's been dead or anything. They've been doing like side games. They even updated New Leaf with a new version of that game. And that's all cool, but I want a new Animal Crossing game. I can't wait till we finally get one.
Yeah.
And I love the series, and I can't wait to see what they do next. So I hope they knock it out of the park. Just completely go crazy. Show us a brand new style of Animal Crossing. And if they don't do that, again, that's fine. I just want a good Animal Crossing game. As long as it's good, I don't care.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about does it. So thank you all for watching. Obviously, this series will continue to go on. I hope you all enjoyed it. And be sure to let me know of any memories you have with Animal Crossing down below. And I'll catch you guys next time.